Katharine Hepburn was born on May 12, 1907, in Hartford, Connecticut, as Katharine Houghton Hepburn. She was born into an affluent but notably progressive household, and Hepburn later recalled that her parents played a major role in shaping her fiercely independent, fiery personality, which would later leave moviegoers mesmerized.
Katharine Hepburn as an actress is almost a tangle of contradictions. She's this patrician, blue blood, New England aristocratic woman, but she's also a tomboy. She's tough, but she's delicate. That's what makes her so fascinating to watch.
After graduating college, Hepburn realized that her calling in life was in the spotlight of the theater, and immediately got to work, but as a result of her snappish and rude attitude, Hepburn got off to a rocky start as she tried her hand in the show business. After many failures, Miss Hepburn's spirited performance in Broadway's adaptation of The Warrior's Husband brought her to the eye of Hollywood. Her first film, highly critically acclaimed and publicly well-received, A Bill of Divorcement, launched her long film career, which was to span over 60 years.
Hepburn followed her first film with a string of hits, including Morning Glory, for which she earned an Academy Award. But by the late 30s, Hepburn suffered a series of film flops and was dubbed box office poison. Hepburn was nominated for 12 Academy Awards and was ranked by AFI as the greatest actress of all time. Hepburn wrote a best-selling memoir and continued to act until 1994. On June 29, 2003, Katharine Hepburn died in her family home at the age of 96.
Perhaps no other female American film star had as tumultuous a career as Katharine Hepburn, but perhaps no other female star had made such a lasting impact as well. Katharine's independence and stunning sense of self reached far beyond her own expansive career, as her style and personality changed Hollywood for starlets and helped rewrite the standards to shape the notion of the modern woman.
Frank Sinatra was born on December 12, 1915, in Hoboken, New Jersey. At a young age, Frank had to live mainly on his own with his mother and father constantly working. While living in Hoboken, Frank had to learn on his own from the streets. He also got into a couple of fights because of being ethnically different. Even though he was in fights all the time, his mom always wanted him to be a gentleman and respectful.
Frank Sinatra, nicknamed The Voice, eventually teamed up with Harry James, a bandleader, to make his first joint recording in July 1939. Soon after the recording, Sinatra was offered a job by the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, where he was able to start making a name for himself as a ballet singer. His first big hit with his new band came with I'll Never Smile Again, which also happened ranked number 1 on the Billboard magazine's brand new chart of America's best-selling records. Then, in 1941, Billboard named Sinatra the top male vocalist of the year. However, soon after, Frank Sinatra's career started to go downhill, ranking only number 5 on Downbeat's annual poll of the most popular singers in 1948. He was able to save his career in 1949 with Take Me Out to the Ballgame, followed by the success of On the Town. Then, in 1954, he was able to win an Oscar award as the Best Supporting Actor. Although he technically retired in the early 1970s, Frank Sinatra was able to make a major comeback in 1973 with Oh Blue Eyes Is Back. He performed at his final concert in 1996 in California at Palm Desert Marriott Ballroom. Frank Sinatra finally died at the age of 82 of a heart attack at Los Angeles Cedar Sinai Medical Center on May 14, 1998. Throughout his lifetime, Sinatra was able to have the 55 top 20 albums, 41 in the top 10, and even had 6 make it to number 1. Perhaps his most successful album was My Way, the very best of Frank Sinatra, which earned 5 platinum records, and he is still considered one of the most influential singers to ever tread upon this earth.
Elvis Aaron Presley was born on January 8, 1935, in a 2-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi. Elvis was influenced by gospel music, country, and the R&B he heard on Beale Street when his family moved to Memphis.
In 1953, Elvis Presley, nicknamed the King of Rock and Roll, was able to cut his first demo record, and soon after, Sam Phillips, a record label owner, decided to work with Presley. He was able to make his first single, That's Alright, in 1954 before negotiating a contract with RCA Records. Then, 2 years later, in 1956, Presley was able to make his first number 1 single, Heartbreak Hotel. In the same year, Presley was also able to make a movie contract with Paramount Pictures. However, he was soon drafted into the army in 1957, serving on active duty until 1960, when he left active duty to resume his career with the soundtrack for GI Blues. To help his career, Elvis appeared on his first TV special, which became known as the 6-Date Comeback Special. Then, a few years later, he made #1 on Billboard Pop Album Chart with Elvis, Aloha from Hawaii, via satellite, which was seen in nearly 40 different countries. He made his final concert appearance in 1977 in Indianapolis. Throughout the span of his life, Elvis married only once in 1967 to Priscilla Beaulieu, but they divorced in 1973. He had an addiction to prescription drugs and finally died of heart failure at the age of 42 on August 16, 1977. Presley was able to have an extremely successful career, winning 3 Grammy Awards through the duration of his life. He was also able to make 18 #1 singles and was inducted into the Gospel Music Association's Gospel Music Hall of Fame in 2001.
Clark Gable was born William Henry Will Gable after his father in 1901 in Cadiz, Ohio, son of an oil driller and a mother who died in his very infancy. As a child, Clark's father encouraged him to partake in activities with hard physical labor, such as auto repair and hunting, which the mechanically talented teenager enjoyed. However, he also displayed a more elegant side, with his affinity for language, especially Shakespearean sonnets. The presence of such activities in Clark's early life would lend itself to his characteristic masculinity coupled with an undeniable grace and that huge screen presence so beloved by his Hollywood audience. After deciding at age 17 that the theater was where his passion was, Gable met one of his future wives, Josephine Dillon, who helped guide him through his early steps of his career. Slowly, Clark Gable was able to gain better posture, resonance, and tone. Finally, after working with Gable for an extended period of time, Dillon finally allowed Gable to start his film career. After only acting in second-rate films for a period of time, he was finally offered a contract with MGM after a great appearance in a Los Angeles stage production, The Last Mile, and his first performance in a sound picture was in The Painted Desert. Slowly but surely, Clark Gable was able to build up his fame, co-starring with Joan Crawford in Dance Fools Dance, and after the release of Free Soul, Gable never played a supporting character again. Dubbed the King of Hollywood, Gable went on to film more than 60 films as the leading character in a career at a peak for over 3 decades, and his legacy to last for years to come. Despite his numerous excellently portrayed characters, Gable's undoubtedly most legendary role was as Rhett Butler, the most handsome man in all of the South, in the Civil War romance Gone with the Wind. Although he was originally very reluctant to accept the role, he was persuaded into acceptance by a variety of people and eventually could not decline. The film saw magnificent success and met up to the high public expectations cast for it. Gable went on to serve overseas in Europe during the Second World War, and in 1939 he married Carole Lombard in what many considered the golden pairing of Hollywood. And when she died in a tragic air accident only 3 years afterwards, Clark was devastated. His colleagues reported that he was never quite the same after that incident. In early November of 1960, right after the completion of the filming of Misfits, Gable suffered a sudden heart attack and died later that month. Gable will always be remembered as the King of Hollywood, through his extensive work in film and the scores of admirers, females for his suave manner and good looks, and males for his masculinity and characterization of the American man.
Norma Jean Baker's start in life was anything but glamorous. Born on June 1, 1926 in Los Angeles, California, the identity of her father was never determined, and her mother suffered from severe psychological problems which made it impossible to raise her daughter.
Marilyn Monroe had a vulnerability about her that we saw in her eyes. There was a sweetness. But remember, she really doesn't come from great means. She was not born with a silver spoon in her mouth.
Norma Jean would spend her adolescence bouncing in and out of foster homes and orphanages.
Someone broke my heart in Little Rock, so I up and left the pieces there.
After a few years of inconsequential films, she broke out with leading roles in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire.
Her legend remains as the ultimate blonde bombshell and as one of the most recognizable faces ever to grace the silver screen.
Yeah, real hot.
People are still looking up to her. People are still modeling themselves after her. They want to be like her.
Audrey Hepburn was born in Belgium as Audrey Kathleen Rustin. Her parents were aristocrats, and they divorced when her father had an affair with a nanny. Hepburn was of mixed European descent. Her mother was from the Netherlands, and her father was from England. Thus, Audrey was fluent in many European languages, including English, Dutch, Spanish, French, and Italian. She had a proper upbringing, starting to dance ballet at age 5. The Nazi occupation and invasion of Europe caused the suffering of many, including Hepburn. She suffered from malnutrition and depression. During World War II, Hepburn danced ballet to collect money for the Dutch resistance. She also acted as a courier and made cakes and biscuits for the starving using tulip bulb flour. These were the beginnings of her humanitarian tendencies. After being unable to become a prima ballerina due to wartime malnutrition and her 5'7" height, Hepburn turned to film. She held roles in the films Dutch in 7 languages, Young Wives' Tale, Roman Holiday, Funny Face, Sabrina, Love in the Afternoon, and The Nun's Story. Hepburn started out with a small speaking role in her first movie. By 1954, she had received 2 Academy Award nominations. She was very loved by the public. She was very successful as a model, dancer, actress, and singer, and she won many awards and nominations. Her most iconic role was the lead in Breakfast at Tiffany's. She sang in this movie as well. Hepburn was multi-talented and very successful in her career. In addition, Audrey Hepburn was also a humanitarian. She was very active and devoted to UNICEF. She traveled much around the world and was appalled by the living conditions of many foreign countries. Audrey Hepburn married twice, first to Mel Ferrer and then to Andrea Doty. She had 1 child with each man. However, she had many miscarriages and suffered from abdominal pains. It turned out to be abdominal cancer. By the time she was diagnosed, the cancer had metastasized, and the doctor deemed the cancer inoperable. It was too late to save her. The only thing they could do was lessen the pain. On January 20th, 1993, she died at home in her sleep. Audrey Hepburn was a huge fashion icon. She made the little black dress popular, and she inspired many designers. She is remembered for her femininity, grace, innocence, beauty, glamour, talent, and goodwill.
Style someday. Oh, dream maker, you heartbreaker, wherever